Hey everyone, Happy New Year. It's the Sith Justice Warriors coming at you in this 2021 time frame with your co-host, Princess Lumpia.
Hey, Happy New Year. 2021 is here.
Yay. Any fun things to share? Any fun resolutions you may have?
Honestly, it's probably to, stay on top of my comic book reading. I actually caught up on a lot of books over the holiday since I had some me time and it was nice to do that. Um, I think it was good because I had some time off and could just do the things I want to do. But I hopefully I could stay caught up like this and continue. I think the other thing is just committing myself to better not better health habits, but more or less keep it to like at least like some sort of form of exercise a day, that kind of thing. I know everyone says it, but with all of the things at our fingertips, that you could do in 10 minutes, like from an app, it should be an easy thing to do. But yeah, lots of good stuff for 2021. It's just a matter of that, and then hopefully, I don't know, I'm looking forward to things reopening up and things just getting back to normalcy, but we'll see. I know it matters kind of where you're located, what state, like those kind of things, but I'd like to get back to some sort of normalcy, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. What
Cool.
about you?
Same, similar. Where I need to keep up with the fitness goals, but I think I need to read the comic books that just seem to accumulate because I do want to support more of the indie artists with the Kickstarters and Indiegogo.
Yep.
Ethan's really pushing out his publishing arm, so it'll be interesting to see the things he puts into his fold, as well as Zach too. So it's interesting stuff. Senscope's got some interesting things as well, but again, I just need to catch up on those before I start buying anymore. And then also, it's reading books, real books that kind of either more for work in terms of helping me get better at work or get better at other things, but yeah, that's kind of similar here. And then also, I do need to get back to beating games because I'm kind of tired of buying new games and then never beating them. So
That's
that's what
true,
I'm
though.
looking
That's
for.
really, you know what? You're so right. Games are another thing. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and then also, I do want to put a little bit more content out there. So I'm kind of gonna look out for one in the future. I'm trying to do a little bit of a review of a book that I forgot all about, but it was actually one of the more anticipated things. I think if I remember when the Indiegogo Kickstarter came out, and I forgot all about it. I think it was like 2 years ago. This comic book got delayed, so I want to give some thoughts on that. So that being said, one of the things that we did was we watched a movie that was um, I guess it was a superhero movie to say the least. That actually came out in to theaters and streaming. By the title, everyone knows it's Wonder Woman 84. So I think it's been interesting because when it came out, there's a lot of reaction, mostly a bit negative. We wanted to share our thoughts about it because it's a very complicated. I mean, in my mind, I still think about it. It's pretty complicated. So, Lumpia, take it away with your thoughts of where you want to take this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting that, it was available on HBO Max, but as we all know, that's the new that's kind of the way that these movies are going to be going forward, at least for this particular, studio Warner Brothers. It kind of enraged some of the people who worked on the movies, and rightfully so. But I will say that in select theaters that are still open, there are some. This was airing because Wonder Woman did have, you know, worldwide pandemic sales. And so if you think about it, there were people who were actually watching it in the theaters. I didn't realize I had a theater close by to me that actually had it on there.
It was
And
open.
yeah, like there was like it's a small like mom and pop theater, like not a large chain. So I just thought that was interesting. And the AMC by my parents' house is actually open. So I didn't realize that. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of numbers, it gained 5.5 million domestically, according to Variety, and globally topped 118 million. So for that weekend, which was good. I mean, considering these are pandemic numbers, that's probably the best pandemic movie out there at this time, knowing that there are small theaters or small groups of theaters that are open at this time. Like I said, it was nice to have the option to watch it from the comforts of my home. Um, and the timing was when I felt like it, so that was nice to have. But that besides the point, like I said, I went into this movie um, not really thinking much because I enjoyed the first one. I didn't rush out on day one to see it. I waited and I actually watched it on a flight. And I actually enjoyed the movie. So, like, watching this one, I didn't really read spoilers or anything like that. I didn't really do a lot of research. I know a lot of people were saying it was horrible, like, or not horrible, but they did the best with what they had, meaning the actors. And like I said, I went in with it kind of like, okay, like let's see what happens. We all knew from the trailers that Steve was somehow coming back to life and that um Cheetah would be a villain, and so would this guy, Max Lord, but we didn't really know much about it. So I'll start off with, without giving too much of the spoilers, but we are going to get into spoilers, so warning, fair warning. Um, I'll start off with the good and the bad. Like, I I really enjoyed the movie. It was a long movie. It was almost 2.5 hours, a little bit over. What I enjoyed about the movie was the nostalgic factor of the 1984 piece. They really brought back those feels, like Walden Books, the mall. Um, I basically enjoyed the first 2 hours of the movie, but again, I'll caveat: I walked in knowing it would be a movie that didn't like. You have to walk into this movie assuming that things are going to happen that don't make sense, because it is a comic book movie, it's a superhero movie, so things aren't going to make sense, like her running around in a lasso in the mall. But I took it for what it was, and was like, okay. At the crux of it all is a stone that they uncovered during a heist. And Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, she works at the Smithsonian, and surprisingly enough, Kristen Wiig's character, Barbara Minerva, works there as well. I felt like I said their friendship could have been drawn out or fleshed out a little more. It almost felt a little too rushed, to say the least. Like, Barbara came off very needy, but maybe that's her character. I don't know. I actually thought that Kristen Wiig did a really good job with the part. Like I said, I think all the actors did the best they could with the roles that they had. Um, the like I said, the Steve thing, it was actually very emotional. I don't know why, but I got emotional with Steve like being there, and maybe that's because of the way they portrayed it. Like, really, like, she just never let go of Steve. And I don't know, I personally felt it too when he came back and when she had to let him go. So that to me was like, it's kind of sad that it all centered around Steve, but at the end of the day, that's kind of where that movie left us off with. Um, that's pretty much all that I can think of at this time. Having watched it twice, I actually did watch it twice just to see if my feelings would be the same. So the bad was that it was honestly, from a storytelling perspective, the story was just so mumbo jumbo jumbled that I really, like I said, I could stomach the first 2 hours, but at the end, when you reach the climax, I got angry because I realized at that point, we went from, if you saw Wonder Woman, the first one, you went from a bigger than life enemy, Ares, God of War. You went from this bigger than life enemy to a human being who inherited powers because he wished for them. And that's when I think it started falling apart and the true unraveling of the story itself like hit me. Um because at the end of the day, the way they decided to wrap things up after 2 hours of everything was, and I know purposely they wanted to leave the Barbara Minerva thing hanging, but if you think about it, this stone granted people their wishes but took away what mattered most to them. So in the case of Wonder Woman, it took away her powers to give Steve back to her. Um, I again, that makes sense to me, but the fact is, the other piece of it, Steve is actually possessing someone else's body. So keep that in mind. The only she only sees Steve, but it's like kind of a mental thing if you think about it. Like he's in another man's body, but it's him. But she only sees him, but the rest of the world sees the other guy. Um so if you think about it, it really wasn't worth her wish because no matter what, Steve is gone. It's just his spirit. Um, but really, like we went to this guy Max Lord, and I thought that he, meaning Pedro Pascal, I thought he played him very well actually for this '80s sort of thing. But we literally defeat him by basically using the truth. The truth will set you free. That was the biggest thing about the movie, the biggest, I guess, meaning behind the whole entire story was truth, truth, truth. So she defeats him using the truth lasso on him and speaking to all the people that have wished for something to ask them to denounce their wishes, and that's how they defeat him. And when he realizes the truth of all of that he's caused, he runs away and goes after his son, who he abandoned in his office to like this mob of people, and decided, he suddenly remembered him. I don't know how he convinced the chopper in the end that brought him to the place that he was broadcasting from. I don't know how he managed to convince them after they renounced their wishes, and he did too, and he didn't have the power anymore to bring him back to the White House, DC area. But so he did. Again, there were like really big holes in this movie that don't make sense. That was one of them. He is another one of them because, like, to be honest, he wasn't a strong hero. He wasn't strongly fleshed out. We only saw glimpses of his past, and we were supposed to feel bad for him because he was struggling as a child. He was beat up by his father. Like, there's just like, I don't know why we didn't see that in the beginning to feel those feelings for him from the onset. We had to see it towards the end and understand that's why he renounced his wish. Like, that didn't make sense to me. And I just felt like cheated in a way. Net, this movie didn't do anything to move the story forward. It was one of those, I will always describe it as a filler movie. If you watch anime or any series, there's always a filler episode that doesn't amount to anything. Like, it doesn't move the series or story forward. It's just there because it's there. And this was truly one of them that was like, did we really need to understand? Did we really need this to be introduced to Barbara Minerva and see how it's really like Barbara Minerva's our origin story, how she became Cheetah? Like that, if anything, that's what it is. Then they better use her in their next film because they left her kind of hanging out there too. Did she renounce her wish? I don't think she did. She definitely lost her feline like looks, but she still looked like she was the same person that she was. So like I said, it didn't do much for me in terms of like aha. All it did was like let go of Steve finally. It was like a moratorium for Steve, which I kind of was like, you really didn't need to do 2.5 hours for that. So anyway, I will pass it on to you. I probably missed a lot, but those were like my honest like take on it. I could have believed the movie up until that point where it started to like feel like this is like really going nowhere.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me was I didn't realize that I sat through 2.5 hours of it. Um, I know people say the corniness sort of made it lovable, but the things were the lasso being used as the whip to get her to swing, and that bothered me because I was like, what is she, Spider-Man?
She had a freaking, sorry to interrupt you, but what you brought something up that the freaking lasso is what she used when she had this big ass armor at the end that they were touting. Oh my god, that's Asteria's armor, and she didn't need it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, where did her sword and shield go? That's another good question I had too. But then I thought about it. What's the point of the sword and shield? It's not like Cheetah was this horrible bad guy that she had trouble fighting with. In fact, actually, she only had trouble with Cheetah because she was losing her powers due to her wish. Um, the other thing that bothered me was that a lot of the things that she was involved with, other than this Wishstone stuff in the movie, was rather small. She was like basically Spider-Man. It was like, let me save the bride who fell off the bridge. Let me save the jogger, which all well and good. But Wonder Woman, this is different from the Wonder Woman I saw that took on Doomsday, that took on that fought Superman a little bit, who fought Steppenwolf, right?
Yeah, because she basically disappeared from the face of the earth.
Right, and here's another thing too, is that we did not know a damn thing about Wonder Woman in up to Batman versus Superman. Yeah, Batman versus Superman, and all of a sudden, she's swinging around like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, saving John Joe's shop in DC. That felt kind of disappointing. I'm like, of all the, if this was a kind of a women's empowerment type of situation, which Wonder Woman is always been a women's empowerment thing. No issue with that, by the way. Um, that's the little tasks you put her on. It's kind of weird because Patty Jenkins, it's Sirius. I was going to use this, and Sirius probably would have got this, and maybe you will. It's like your team just won the Super Bowl, and you have a losing record the year after. Patty Jenkins can make a good Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman, the original movie, was really good. It was epic. And then for some strange reason, how do I say it? She's just doing really small stuff. So that really bothered me because I know Patty Jenkins could do better. It's almost like they mailed it in. The other thing too was that, darn it, it's on the tip of my tongue. The best way to sum it up is it was a direct to consumer type of movie. Like, if you remember back in the day, you get a movie that goes straight to DVD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
King 2.
Yeah, that's what my issue is that this is Wonder Woman. This is one of the few shining stars that you have left in your DCEU cupboard, and you wasted on that. And they're lucky that they had HBO Max because they could actually get views and subscriptions. If this was in the movie theaters, even with the virus that we're still not allowed to name directly, I don't think it would do well. I think the one thing, for example, the headline was they were so happy about getting 100,000. I'm sorry, 100 million, which I don't even know if that even breaks even for their production costs, let alone the marketing costs. It's right now it's a flop, and we'd have to see what the HBO Max numbers pulled in. but HBO Max hopefully saved it because they've relit a third one, and I'm like, I know Patty Jenkins could do a better Wonder Woman. It's not the star's fault because I felt that the actors did the best they could. If anything, they did a wonderful job. But we got to find the writer because a lot of plot holes, a lot of who cares. It's almost like Kathleen Kennedy just stepped in and said, let's make you care about something that doesn't really matter. In fact, you say it's an origin story for Barbara Cheetah. I think it's an origin story of how Wonder Woman learned to fly.
Right? Exactly. You know what? You're absolutely right. That or yeah, it's either or, right? It's sad that you didn't watch the Captain Marvel movie because I'd love to see what you thought was better.
No, I will. I have to. I must do this because I'm assuming you two have watched it. I'm assuming Captain Marvel's better than is not better than
Even
this.
though it was, I mean, we all knew it was an origin story, so at least the expectation was set that okay, this is like origin story. Like it wasn't the best of the Marvel movies, but at least it was cohesive, like from a writing perspective. But I agree with you. I think that Patty Jenkins and the actors and actresses did their roles the best they could. What was, and even the Easter egg was really nice to see the Linda Carter moment, but I just don't think the writers had a grip on like this was supposed to be the DCEU's movie in July. This was supposed to be the summer movie. And I don't think that other than that it took place July 4th because they were flying through the sky and that's when he noticed the fireworks and they were like, "Oh, it's July 4th." Oh, that made me think, "Oh, this was supposed to be a summer movie." But other than that, like I kind of was just like this really like this really just didn't feel like a cohesive story. If they really thought about it, they would kind of explain to us this movie should have explained to us why she disappeared and why she suddenly appeared in Justice League. Because the first movie felt like it was. Then all of a sudden, like you said, I like what you said about the Spider-Man connection. Like all of a sudden, she's your friendly neighborhood Amazon warrior in DC. But I don't think she ever was. I don't know. I'm not an avid reader of the comics. I don't know. Maybe she was, but I felt like we went from Ares to Max Lord, and we need to? No, we didn't. Like, I told Sirius this after the movie. We had a long conversation like about it. I was like, I wish they would have said that. Remember the stone was created by a god. So maybe that would have been different if the god was present and that's who she was taking down. Like it could be linked to like the gods and goddesses, and she was the person defending the people, the human population from them. So like then it made sense. Like she was the protector of humans from people, like from gods and goddesses like that. If they introduced whatever god created that thing and that like he was the end all be all enemy that she had to defeat and Max Lord was just a pawn of his, this would have been a little bit of a different belief to like I just can't believe he caused that much damage. He set off nuclear weapons and shit.
Well, the worst part, yeah, and to add to that, the worst part is he did all this nuclear weapon warfare, but then life just went on as if it never happened, even though it happened.
Yeah, and it did happen because like that wall that separated two countries that just suddenly came and then it just suddenly disappeared, but it still caused a war. So to your point, even though the wishes were renounced, the war still happened. People did like you don't go rewind backwards. So like that was the other thing. Like I said, so many plot holes that I felt like the writers just ignored and felt like, oh, we just have to release a movie. So if they are releasing the third one on a fast track schedule, I wish they would just take the time to consider continuity and what you're trying to get at from a totality perspective. In all of the I will say, and they're not perfect, but in all of the Iron Man movies, they're not perfect, let's be honest. But there was growth in each of those. There was a reason, you know, because it was development. It was development of the character to set that person up to be leading the Avengers, so to speak. So think about Wonder Woman in the grand scheme of things and what you're trying to get to, knowing that we have already seen the future with Justice League and with Batman versus Superman. So how do we get there if that's what you're trying to do?
And Wonder Woman 84 didn't. It could have been a story that never was told, and you're still fine. You didn't need to know, which is partially why I personally hate prequels. I hate origin stories of characters who were just introduced. They're already in the present, so to speak. But this was a miss. It was actually, if this was your June, July summer movie, that was supposed to save theaters during a time of pandemic, they're lucky that they didn't put it out then, because there really wasn't much really to work on with it.
Yeah.
But you alluded to something that I wanted to get to, which is, what is the future of the DCEU? Because Wonder Woman 84 didn't give you any origin story. It didn't, at least Captain Marvel told you how Nick Fury lost his eye, even though it overdid itself, and somehow the cat had the Tesseract. Even though somehow I know this, even though I never watched it. And let's just look through. So the Snyder Cut is in March.
That's what it is. That's the future. The Snyder Cut.
Suicide Squad is August 6th, and again, this is based on. And then March 2022 is Batman, or the Batman. And then back to your continuity with The Flash in November 2022. There's a bunch of other, Aquaman's in December 2022, and 2023 Shazam, and there's Black Adam's down the road, and everything else is more to be determined. I actually will say Marvel is in a similar spot, because you don't know what the other movies there are leading up to as well. But if you saw these things, what is the future? Because is it just simply telling singular stories other than Flash with the Flashpoint?
Bringing it all together. Yeah. No, that's a really good question that you bring up, because it feels to me like, and I think there was an article out there somewhere that Patty Jenkins actually never saw Zack Snyder's movie for the DC. Yeah, she's never seen Zack Snyder's Justice League. So they're really made in silos. And I thought that Warner Brothers was going to approach this as a total universe, especially with the way they did Suicide Squad, but I guess not.
Suicide Squad's weird, because it's sort of a reboot, but it's sort of a continuation.
Yeah, but then they're bringing in, so the characters in some of Suicide Squad are getting their own feature on HBO Max. So
you can assume they survive, right? The people that get their own.
Well, apparently, I think John Cena's character, this guy that can I guess you can rip his limbs off.
No, that's Nathan Fillion, isn't it?
Oh, is it Nathan Fillion? Yeah, sorry, Nathan Fillion's character. I think it's him or John Cena. One of them is getting a show. So it's again, they've got they've even got Teen Titans in season 2 or 3, and they've got I don't understand why they're so good at it for TV, linking the Green Arrow and Flash. They do such a good job there. And then this happens. It's if they've never considered a universe for the movies, but then they just throw each of them in, I just don't understand that.
But is that because we're so used to the success of Marvel that everything has to wrap together?
That's a good point. Does it? So let's think about that question. If I think about it, it doesn't, because you're right.
Batman, but Batman in general.
Yeah,
right?
Batman in general has never linked to Superman before, until they decided to do it then. And it worked. All those earlier Michael Keaton Batman, they were very popular for their time. even the preceding ones with George Clooney and Val Kilmer that didn't last long enough. Even the Christian Bale ones,
Christian Bale ones were great,
which were excellent. So if you think about it, and then I'll go to the Marvel side. When Marvel was misshapen and like everywhere, Blade, the fact that there were 3 Blade movies is a testament to the fact that it can exist outside a universe. You know what I mean?
X-Men is interesting because I know it's Fox, but the mutant world really is its own universe in a weird way, right?
Yeah, but
Blade, there's so many of them.
Blade was not a mutant though. He existed in the sort of Spider-Man section, if you will.
But they had their own universe. Hell, they have a Spider-Verse.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like in a weird way, it can exist separate. I think we all. I don't speak for everyone, but I thought that DC was trying to put it all together with the way they did Justice League, with the way they did Batman versus Superman. But I guess what they want you to think is that these are all happening in parallel points of time, and we can just throw people together. I don't know. It worked. I will say it worked when they weren't together in the same universe. Just Marvel just seems to do a better job of it. I think DC just has to put a stake in the ground and say, just know they're all in the same universe, but they don't have to be together.
So, well, here's a good question, and we normally tend to lean Marvel. That's just what we grew up with. But are the Marvel characters not equal individually? Like some of the parts do not equal. They're not greater than the whole. Versus the reverse for DC. Like I prefer Marvel. I think you do too. The characters we grew up with it, but like, is Flash bigger? Is Flash itself bigger? Superman is definitely one of the bigger ones. Batman is bigger. Like they always say that Spider-Man is the biggest one because a lot of people relate to Spider-Man. But then after that, like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman sort of are next in the whole hierarchy of superheroes, and that's why maybe DC figured, let's stop with the whole Justice League stuff and let's just go to the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, versus Marvel where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Actually, that's a good point. I think that you're onto something there. Like, I do agree with you that just from a character solo perspective, and I have to pull up the numbers, but you're right. Spider-Man, that's why Sony was so successful with Spider-Man, because everyone knew who Spider-Man was. He didn't need to exist in the MCU. It's like icing on the cake that he does.
Yes.
That was like icing on the cake to have him show up in Avengers or in the Civil War, was it?
Yeah.
But he kind of didn't need. That's why Sony will never give him up, because they don't need the Marvel universe. The Marvel universe needs him.
That's true.
So, like, to your point, I actually think you're right about something, because we have never, from a DC perspective, we have never seen any follow-ups to Justice League. Mm-mm. We have never heard of any Justice League 2. We have never heard of any. As a matter of fact, like, there's so much like noise in the news about Justice League, like with the Zack Snyder cut coming out, like how, Joss Whedon took over for him because he suffered a tragedy at the time, and he erased a lot of footage and made it a different story altogether than Zack Snyder wanted. The fans are in an uproar because they want to see the real universe Zack Snyder was proposing. And thus the cut that's coming out this year in March, I think. Even the guy who plays Cyborg is in an uproar because he didn't see enough screen time. It's just a mess right now that they have to control. But I think that you're onto something. There's a reason we never saw any more about Justice League after that point. We suddenly went into an Aquaman movie, which, to be honest, did very well, and I enjoyed it. Then we went into a Wonder Woman movie. So we went backwards from that point, and we never revisited the point of like let's put them all together again.
The weird thing too is that Warner Brothers owns everything DC. So there's no red tape with when it was Fox, Marvel, and
Yeah.
Sony. There's no deal making to be had. Oh, and Universal owns Hulk and Iron Man, so Iron Man can only and
Yeah,
Hulk
it's
can
pretty
only
clean, right?
and
They
Namor can only
control.
appear in another movie that Marvel makes, but never its own. It's the weirdest thing, and again, we past performances that Marvel has clearly outpaced itself. Now, granted, it's more for the normies, which fine. That's partially why they make a lot of money. But yeah, it's like the Suicide Squad is the only thing that's technically a merge of different, like what
Different
you call
people who I don't even know. Like, apparently, I really don't know. But like, then we went into a Harley Quinn movie, which
the
also
Birds of Prey.
was very mixed. And then we also went into a oh my god, what was the other thing?
Shazam! You forgot about Shazam.
Shazam! But you know what? With Black Adam coming out later this year, supposedly, or is it next year? I don't know. Supposedly, that's supposed to release a whole new realm of possibilities from a DCU. But maybe that's the point. DC doesn't want a DCEU. They don't, and they never really did. They just wanted to put out movies.
Batgirl's coming. Yeah, Batgirl's in production, New Gods, which I think is their Eternals, but it's fascinating because there's such a big thing about Ava DuVernay. But we're still waiting for the TBD. Well, I mean, I'm just looking and I'm like, and then I guess they're still with Jared Leto still trying to hold out hope for his Joker, which quite frankly, it's not going to work out.
Like I said, it's just so interesting because when you say that, because they just want to make films to make the money and see what happens. I don't think, and I think Shazam is supposed to have Shazam too, because that's the reason for Black Adam existing. But they're never going to put Shazam in with the Justice League. They're never going to do that because, like you said, the parts are bigger than the sum in this franchise. And I think that is something I never thought about, but is the reality. And the way Marvel works better is together with all those people. Think about the Spider-Man movies and how they throw in everyone. And this particular next one is going to throw in everyone from the
my man Toby.
It's going to throw in everyone. They're already petitioning to have Rhino in it. So like,
was this the Rhino of Amazing Spider-Man?
Yeah, this is the Rhino. I think the Paul Giamatti Rhino.
Yeah. Again, it's supposed to be the curse of Spider-Man is that the third movie always has like 20 million.
Yeah, so here you go. You got your wish, and it's not even Sam Raimi directing it, but this is the Marvel formula, and it's been working for them because it's the way they set it up. I will say the DC formula. I have always enjoyed the Batman movies, and out of all the DC characters, Batman will always be my favorite. But
I like his little world. His little world's nice.
His universe or whatever. Batman is always good, but what they have done, now that you've brought this up, they have tested movies solo of everything beyond the sun. I mean, the Joker movie, for example, which got a lot of accolades, and I still haven't seen it. Sirius said it was really good. That movie was outside of the realm of all of this, but still was still a DC movie, but like outside of this realm that we thought was DCEU, but there really isn't one. If there is a DCEU, it's in the TV. It's in TV where Stargirl and Batwoman and Green Arrow and Flash exist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, it is what it is. That's where they put all their bets, in the TV. And I think they do it well in the sense of the TV is where they have been very successful.
So before we wrap this up, because I do want to say a couple of things. We do have to say that Wonder Woman 3 has been greenlit. I guess they felt that this was successful, despite the negative press. And this is from the critics. This is not from YouTubers. They already shared their thing. I think IMDb gave it a really low rating or
Yeah, and I
something.
know on Tomatoes it ended up falling. Like it started up high and then it fell. So something
So
like
I
that.
have to ask this. Well, one of the movies that they think is going to come out is Justice League Dark, and that includes Constantine. So I ask you, do you think they're going to get him back?
Justice League Dark, Constantine.
Constantine. Do you know who played Constantine?
Keanu Constantine? Oh
Yeah.
my god. Do I think they're going to get him back? I'm not sure. But I know Keanu, like, he did that 10-year Constantine, like, program thing for the Comic Con. And, like I said, he didn't think he was the right person for it, but then he made it his own. I don't know if they'll get him back. I would love it if they got him back.
I think you said it best. It wasn't. I'm not a Constantine expert, but apparently it's what he said was Constantine was that was his Constantine versus.
Exactly. It was his. He said he made it his own Constantine because he was like he even told the people when they approached him, if I remember, and I'm ad libbing this, but he basically said to them, "I'm not the part. This isn't like this person. I don't have the same haircut. I don't have the same like this isn't me." But they really wanted him to play it, and so he said, "Well." Like he kind of looked at it and was like, well, I'm going to make this my own version of Constantine. And so it worked. And like now I'm like, oh my God, if they do, I mean, that's great. I'm a big fan of, again, TV. They have Lucifer and it's on Netflix. After a lot of people like signing stuff to like beg for it to be back, like it is. I thought this was going to be the last season, but they kind of were like hinting that they would continue it. And so it's like, if it is, he exists in that world. He exists in the Vertigo world. It would be interesting if they got the same guy on Lucifer to be involved with him, because that would be really great. It's just, like I said, if they got Keanu to play Constantine again, that would just be amazing. I don't even know what to say.
All right. We shall see what DC has if they're going to continue to double down on this formula, make the TVs connected and make the movies separate, or if they try to do the Marvel thing, because I guess it just doesn't work for them, Justice League, despite the fact that Justice League does have their own Avengers. But you know what? It's going to be interesting because both franchises, Marvel and DC, they're in this turning point. They've moved on the chapter with the greats like Downey Jr. I could tell he doesn't want to do it anymore. Chris Evans, he'll probably be back because he's probably like, I got no other things to do. But Downey, I think Downey's done. And then, I think Chris Pratt, I have a bold prediction. I think he's ready to go.
Yeah, I think he's done too.
I
Honestly,
think he really would like to stay, but I think the direction of I believe what they did in the comic books was an indirect way to get at him.
yep,
And I think Hollywood and what they want him to do versus what he just wants to do, which is basically just act. I
yeah,
don't think he wants to do it anymore.
yeah,
Um, I will have to see because this might be the era of not non-interconnected movies anymore. We'll have to see. That
yeah.
being said, we'll wrap it up here and let if everyone likes the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications as we drop content. Also know that we do put the recordings on podcasts like Spotify and Google Podcasts. So if you prefer that on the go, audio only, we'll post that up in a few days. And one other thing is that we are on Twitter at Just the Sith is our handle. Feel free to interact with us. And with that said, bring that dark to light on entertainment, and looking forward to talking with you all in 2021, hoping this is a better year. So with that said, see you on the Sith side.